Releasing in late 2001, we are now on Resident Evil Gaiden, a game made for the Game Boy Color of all consoles, which seems very peculiar to me because the Game Boy Advance released earlier this same year. Survival horror on this brick of a system seemed to me like a Herculean task, but by God, they did it. This wasn't even the first attempt in doing so, as apparently there were plans to put the first Resident Evil game on the Game Boy Color, and the footage that we've seen of that looks, interesting? To make things even crazier, this is the game that Capcom decided to put extended effort into. Survivor 1 and 2? Cash grabs! Who cares what people think, as long as I sell gun cons? But Gaiden? Now this requires advising from Shinji Mikami himself, as well as the director from Code Veronica, Hiroki Kato, writing the story. This is the game that they put effort into. The one where characters' faces look like this. Unfortunately, it seems like there's only so much one can do on the Game Boy Color though. Gaiden released to middling reviews and is generally forgotten by fans. Its story isn't even relevant because it's basically in its own canon separate from the other games. That's literally what Gaiden means, a side story. But I have to admit, this game really piqued my interest. How are they gonna pull off a Resident Evil game on such a primitive handheld system? Let's find out as we take a look at Resident Evil Gaiden. So let me send you through my very first impressions of this game on the title screen. As soon as you reach it, you're greeted by this. Oh God, is that what the music's gonna be through the whole game? This is piercing my eardrum. This intro theme actually kicks ass, and look at this, it even has a super compressed Resident Evil like the other games. Oh my God, this is adorable! And the positive impressions don't stop there. This game has some of the best sprite work I've seen on the console. Like, yeah, it's a Game Boy Color, it all still kind of looks mushy and blocky and ugly in general, but it's adorable how hard it's trying. Despite being an early Nintendo system, they do try to get away with as much gore as they can in the artwork. Generally, the zombies and monsters in this game look pretty gnarly, and their designs are really well put together and reminiscent of the previous games. It even has full-on cutscenes with little animations and everything. This game is going as far as it can with the subject matter, and I'm loving it. That isn't to say it's perfect, you can still very much so tell that it's on the Game Boy. Cutscenes are brief and everything still looks kinda stiff and lumpy from being so pixelated, but man, I don't care, this is cute as hell. So the game begins with its own setup into the Resident Evil world. Here, all the protagonists from the previous games, as well as some ex-Umbrella employees, have set up their own little secret base in order to combat Umbrella and the forces of evil. It's like if you turned Resident Evil into a Saturday morning cartoon or something. When they hear that Umbrella is up to their no-good shenanigans again, they send an agent to take care of it, which is exactly what's happening now. Barry Burton from Resident Evil 1 makes his second appearance to be sent to a luxury cruise liner called the Starlight. Here, a bioorganic weapon has escaped and Leon S. Kennedy has gone missing while trying to track it down. Barry must helicopter in and both destroy the BOW and save Leon. But be careful, the BOW is extremely dangerous, even in its human form. Wait, what does that mean? That seems like something that could use a bit more explanation, but I guess the organization is in a position where they know about the BOW and its forms, but somehow also don't know anything else about it to give Barry details. Whatever, Barry flies onto the ship and the game begins. As soon as we enter the ship's main hall, we are immediately bombarded by a bunch of spooky zombies! And this is where we get the introduction to the game's combat system. So, aiming probably isn't that feasible on the Game Boy Color, where a bullet the size of 1 pixel would equate to 1/3 the size of a person's head. So instead, the game turns into this sort of shooting gallery type minigame upon getting grabbed, or by successfully aiming a crosshair onto an enemy. Here, whatever monster you're fighting is presented relative to your own position, with different distances and states of awareness. If a zombie is far away and has his back to you, the game will show that. The backgrounds change depending on what area you're currently in, and zombies appear exactly where they would from a first-person angle. This once again shows just how much work went into this game and its pixel art. During a combat scenario, everything plays in real time, from you attacking, running away, or opening up your inventory to heal or change a weapon, which creates a real sense of urgency to act fast or else you risk taking damage. Once a weapon is equipped, you are tasked to press A once the crosshair is aligned with the enemy, dealing more damage when perfectly in the center. Weapons also deal less damage depending on how far an enemy is from you. Something like the rifle can excel at longer distances, but the shotgun will do significantly less from afar. So you have to decide whether or not you want to attack something from a distance for more safety, but at the risk of dealing less damage and eating up more ammo. You are also given the option to run away from a fight, but if you do this, then all the zombies currently attacking you will instant transmission right in front of you and start taking chunks out until you successfully land right in the center of the screen. This is a very well realized combat system. The only thing that I'm not a fan of is how stronger weapons make up for their higher damage by becoming faster and harder to hit properly. Wouldn't it make more sense that the large weapons like the rocket launcher would move slower, since they aren't exactly hard to aim, just really big and bulky? Then you'd be able to make more precise shots at the cost of a slower fire rate. Doing it like this just means that I'm missing a shitload of shots and wasting a lot of powerful ammo. Another kind of mediocre addition would be that you're allowed up to 3 party members that you can equip with different weapons. This ends up not being all that useful as anything more than a quick weapon swap, and maybe a way to evenly distribute damage by switching to another character during an attack. I have hereby assigned Leon S. Kennedy to the role of Little Whipping Boy. Regardless, this is still pretty great so far, at least for a Game Boy game. And now the explorative part of the game really begins. And once again, it is a surprisingly faithful reinterpretation of standard survival horror gameplay. You're free to explore and pick up any key items throughout the map to slowly but surely open up more and more of the level, as well as finding new weapons, ammo, and health, all while trying your best to conserve ammunition by avoiding combat encounters and strategically killing off enemies in tighter areas while running around the ones in larger spaces. You even still have to do that silly bait tactic where you keep teasing a zombie to charge at you before you run right around them. The poison mechanic still exists and can be cured by herbs, though there is no herb mixing this time. Here, the purple herb reigns as champion for full heals and curing poison. This game is so endearing. Everything is here. It plays like a best attempt at putting Resident Evil on a Game Boy Color. And that is so adorable. So back to the story. Barry runs with the ship and makes his way to a security room where he can observe the cameras. This is where he locates a girl. She says her name is Lucia and she was left to hide while Leon searched for the BOW. But suddenly a monster starts trying to get into her room, so Barry speeds over to save her. Here the two are greeted by a giant creature with tentacles in its stomach. It seems reminiscent of a tyrant, but unfortunately we never actually get a name for it. Everybody just refers to it as the BOW. That's kind of a shame too, because I love the dumb, obscure names that they give to these spin-off tyrants, like Hypnos from Survivor. Here we first fight the creature, and it takes 2 seconds to kill. Once defeated, it snots away into what the game keeps describing as an amoeba-like form, apparently possessing some sort of matter-shifting ability like the T-1000. Then Lucia starts saying and doing some really odd things that Barry immediately picks up on. She stands here as the sole survivor from the cruise, she got injured but immediately heals from it, and she also seems to have the ability to tell when the BOW is close or not, which occurs again when the BOW bursts from the wall and ends up taking her away. Despite watching her get dragged away, Barry decides that Leon is much more important to go after him instead. I mean, the game says that the monster just disappeared in the darkness with her, but I'm pretty sure he can't goo away with her in his arms, so I'm starting to think that Barry just chose bros before hoes. Inside the first-class cabins, we find Leon taking a little nap inside of a hole. And oh boy, that Leon headshot sure is a different quality to the rest of the characters. In fact, that looks like somebody straight up traced his model from Resident Evil 2. Yep, that's exactly what they did. Barry fills in Leon on what's been happening and straight up says that Lucia might be the BOW that they're looking for. And Leon rightfully says that's stupid. Now that feels like the writer being a bit too eager to cover his bases, because that is exactly where I thought that this story was going. But it makes no sense that Barry would assume that. I'm looking at this from the perspective of a story, but if I was in Barry's shoes, then of course I would assume the BOW was the aggressive 7-foot-tall goo man currently sliming his way through the ship. I think the writer just forgot what a red herring is, so he had a character in-game say what most people would assume the obvious twist is, and then have it immediately get shot down. Barry continues to push this idea until Leon lays out her backstory. She has had special powers ever since she was a kid. Specifically, she has heightened senses and a healing factor. These pretty innocuous powers seem to have caused problems in some way, so her parents shipped her off to live in Europe, which Leon says explains why she's on the ship. Hey, that's cool, but a few problems? That story raises way more questions. Like, why did they ship her off on a luxury cruise liner? Isn't international travel more like for airplanes and cruises are like vacations? And none of this actually disproves Barry's theory. Where did she get these powers from? Her abilities seem clearly connected to the BOW since it isn't killing her, just kidnapping her. Instead of questioning any of this, Barry's response is to call her backstory lame, like he's judging the game's writing or something. And then the two head off to save Lucia. So up until now, things have been pretty good, right? The game as a whole is pretty cute, and the story, while still being pretty bad, is at least fun to laugh at and talk about. But right around here is where Gaiden's charms slowly begin to run dry for me. Because the longer you play the game, the more you realize just how many corners were cut for the survival horror gameplay. The biggest flaw that this game has is a lack of information. Your average game will have items visually exist in the game somehow, even if it just consists of a little shine or a unanimous pickup icon. This game chooses to hide everything from your vision until you walk over it, where you'll then get a notification telling you to pick something up. This means that you cannot immediately see if a room has valuables in it, and you must walk throughout the entire room hunting for a notification symbol. To make things worse, sometimes items can be held by enemies, which at least you will be alerted when you approach them if they have one or not. This applies to everything from health and ammo to weapons and even key items. If you pass over one specific spot or zombie, maybe because you had to avoid an enemy because of low ammo, or maybe you just simply missed it, going back to hunt for it is a massive pain. Earlier on, I ended up missing an important key card that was held by a zombie on an alternate path that I just simply didn't take, forcing me to eventually have to backtrack because I was looking everywhere thinking I missed it. And it gets worse because the game will constantly respawn enemies as stronger variants. So if you missed an item earlier, coming back to it in the future might be even worse. So you might just say, okay, then clear every single room and tediously search every pixel to make sure that you miss nothing. Well, unfortunately for us, the ammo in this game is incredibly limited. If you go around killing everything that you see, you will quickly run out. I swear to God, most enemies in this game were more willing to drop health than the bullets that I need to kill them, leaving me to fight half of all of the zombies with just a knife while tanking their blows. And all that is if they die. There seems to be a random chance that they'll just start crawling around after you kill them, which basically just means that you have to fight them all over again. If you miss out on a weapon, then tough luck to you, because that is a whole new ammo resource that is just completely unavailable to you until you find it. Can you see the rocket launcher in this room? If you said right there, then good job! Let's just hope you have enough ammo to deal with all those fucking zombies guarding it. It reached the point that I was starting to abuse the game's death mechanics. Dying in this game actually has little to no effect on the player, as you are able to immediately restart right at the entrance of a room, so it became more efficient for me to enter a room, search for items, and then just let the zombie eat me if I found nothing, rather than try to maneuver around them again. A survival horror game where death becomes beneficial is doing something very, very wrong. Resident Evil Gaiden commits, in my opinion, one of the biggest sins of a survival horror game like this. No flavor text. Now, you don't necessarily need flavor text in every survival horror game, but when there are so few details clearly visible to the player, you really need a door to say something like, locked. The sign says that this is the Sexaporium. Not just a little icon that tells you can't open it. Only hint you get is in the item's description telling you what floor to use the item on. Tell me, what is this door right here? How do you open it? Did you say? It is the door to the freezer, and you open it by using an electrical fuse on it. No? Because of course you didn't. It just looks like an indentation on the wall. Here I am thinking that I'd be looking for a fuse box or something like an idiot. Missing one thing can grind your playthrough to a halt. And man, I really tried getting through this game on my own, but I admittedly did have to look up a walkthrough once just to find an item I missed. Before that, I was just aimlessly scouring every room I had previously explored. And let me tell you, after a while of doing this, the game's music and sound effects really start to get grating. There are only like 5 songs in the entire game, and it seems incapable of playing both music and sound effects at the same time. So anytime you approach a zombie, the music suddenly cuts out to hear a groan. And you can get painful moments like this. Even then, the music isn't that fantastic as a whole. It has a cool feature where the intensity of the song ramps up as you get closer to zombies, but the Game Boy's emulation of a piano key gets really piercing over time. And Resident Evil Gaiden just doesn't run very well. At first, I thought this was a problem with the emulation I was using, so I spent like 3 hours trying to fix it. Then, after closely observing other people's playthroughs, I'm pretty sure that this is just how the game plays. Anytime you get close to a zombie and the groan plays, the game slows down to a crawl. I'm not certain if this is lag or the game trying to help out the player in maneuvering or aiming, but it's annoying as hell. And this isn't the only location where lag is a problem. Any place where a ton of sprites are on screen make the game visibly slow down to a painful degree. I swear, if there's enough lag, the game simply won't even let you aim at zombies anymore. Also, you might have noticed that I keep saying zombies and not a more general term like enemy or monster. And that's because there isn't really anything other than zombies here. There are guys and girls, sometimes they spit poison, and sometimes they're blue and hyper aggressive, but that's about it. Aside from the occasional boss, which is usually the BOW, the only thing that we're going to be encountering are variants of zombies. No dogs, no unique monsters, just zombies. Don't get me wrong, what is here is exceptionally well made, but the variety has likely taken a huge hit because of that. There are so many things to appreciate about this game, but in the end, it fails to offer some of the easiest additions for a survival horror game. Just making items somehow visible without having to step on them would have made the game leagues better, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And unless you played this game with a guide, I have no doubt it will slowly but surely turn sour for any new player playing it. Okay, back to the story now. Leon and Barry save Lucia from the BOW once again, but the creature doesn't seem to be able to be killed, leading to the group just running away from it. Then an explosion occurs on the ship and Leon immediately proclaims that Lucia is hurt, and she goes, "Wait, what? No, I'm not, what?" The ship is now threatening to explode and sink, so Barry calls in for a helicopter evac as planned, but now they tell him that they can't fly out in this weather, which ascribes an awful level of foresight to these guys. Nah, just hold out till the storm's passed over. Isn't exactly a good plan when the ship could explode at any second. Barry's just like, guess I'll die. But oh wait, they do have some very important details about the BOW. It has green blood! Where do they get these small snippets of information from but aren't able to just tell us what it is? I have no idea, but at least that doubles down on Lucia totally definitely not being the monster. And so Barry runs off because he has a super awesome plan that will definitely work. But he can't share it with Leon because shush, it's a secret. So Leon just snoops on him via the security cameras. He sees Barry calling up Umbrella and saying that he's gonna give up Lucia to them. Is this game trying to pull the whole Barry is a bad guy thing again? Lo and behold, Barry holds Leon at gunpoint as he takes Lucia onto the Umbrella sub while Leon freaks out. Leon tries to get on the ship when a bunch of armed guards start aiming at him. What are you gonna do? Shoot me? What the fuck did you think was gonna happen? Suddenly the starlight continues to explode and Leon reveals that he apparently doesn't know how to swim and he had accepted a job on a fucking ship. He now has to run to the engine room to try and stop the explosions, only to find the BOW there tearing the ship apart, supposedly to cover up the whole incident. The game just straight up says that. I have no idea where they got that information from. After finally killing it, Leon sees that the damage is too far gone, and his fate is left up in the air for now. Meanwhile, we see what Barry and Lucia were up to. Okay, this part gets really convoluted, so try to stick with me. So this was all a plan by Barry to hijack the sub by holding Lucia hostage. Barry called up Umbrella and said that he would give them Lucia, but then is confused that they wanted her instead of the BOW. Okay, how did that come up in the offer? In fact, what offer was he making to Umbrella to begin with? Surely he wouldn't have said, "Hey guys, do you want this girl I found?" And he probably didn't say, "You want this BOW?" Because he didn't actually have it secured. He would have nothing to offer. Hell, he doesn't even know that they would want it back. This could have totally been an intentional release for some reason. This plan seems like it hinges on him knowing that Umbrella wanted Lucia and that he would be able to offer her to them. Otherwise, there's no reason that they would come. Not only that, but now that he's on the sub, what is his plan from here? His only leverage is holding Lucia hostage while being surrounded by a heavily armed security force. What is he going to do? Tell them to abandon ship or else he'll kill her? Is he going to tell them to go back and pick up Leon? Also, this ultimatum that he's presenting is either I will kill the girl or we will leave you without you getting the girl. It's lose-lose. The game avoids answering these questions by becoming even stupider. The captain of the ship reveals that Lucia is not a monster herself, but instead she has a parasite inside of her that I guess makes her have superpowers, and has been harmlessly living inside of her since she was young until right now, where 10 days from now it will eat her from within. The BOW on the ship was sent there to retrieve the parasite, and I have so many questions, but due to the brief format of this game's story, I'm not sure there are any answers. Like, is this supposed to be the monster that escaped from the Umbrella facility? Outside of a little girl getting mocked at school, it doesn't seem like it left a very noticeable trail, so how did anybody track it down? How long have people been tracking it? Why didn't Umbrella act sooner? These questions and more are left up in the air as the game would rather not think about them. So, upon being told about the dire situation that Lucia is in regarding her parasite, Barry demands that Umbrella extract the parasite from her at once. The captain scoffs at the idea because who knows what could happen from doing that, so Barry reiterates his offer. Extraction or extinction? Barry, no! That is your only leverage! Why are you offering this at all? What is stopping these evil people from shooting you the instant this whole thing is over? And if there's a chance that the parasite could die from extraction, then please tell me how indulging Barry's demand is better than just filling him with lead right now and risking damaging the parasite by shooting her. By all means, Barry's plan should not work at all. But regardless, Umbrella surgeons get to work on her and easily pull the parasite out of her mouth. Lucia doesn't even seem affected by the surgery at all. She's up and rearing to go. And then, presumably right before Barry and Lucia are gunned down, the parasite bursts from its container and instantly infects everybody on the sub except for the protagonists. This is where a boss fight occurs against the zombified captain, who is one of the few unique enemies in the game. He is apparently able to operate a firearm, so he's capable of attacking you even from a distance, unlike your average zombie. Easy enough fight if you have the ammunition, but my problem was that this fight takes place literally right after the fight between Leon and the BOW. I had no ammo for this. I genuinely thought that I had soft locked myself. I ended up having to load an older save and once again search the entire ship for weapons and ammo that I might have missed. Again, the fights aren't hard. It's just that finding ammo is so difficult in this game. But now, after clearing the submarine, the team now has an escaped vehicle. Barry just needs to go get Leon and get out. They find him down in the engine room, but for some reason, Lucia immediately sees through the disguise. This isn't Leon at all, but the parasite having taken his form. And that opens a whole nother can of worms that I am not mentally prepared to ask questions about because I'm still reeling from that whole submarine sequence. Whatever, the parasite is basically the thing, I guess, with human intelligence and can transform into people with their memories and has the ability to speak. I don't know. It also turns into something reminiscent of the BOW immediately after Lucia calls it out instead of like defending itself verbally in any way. Holy shit, this game is insane. After escaping the parasite, Barry and Lucia find the real Leon further down in the engine room. With him rescued and the situation explained, they begin to run to the sub before getting cut off once again by the parasite. After defeating it, they head for the sub, but uh-oh, the creature suddenly pulls Lucia into the sea. Barry dives in and easily pulls her out, but then Leon points out that there are now 2 little girls! And then they literally do that cliche where Barry has to decide which one is the real Lucia and then shoot the other one. Despite the fact that the fake one is obviously the one that somehow managed to get back on the ship without Barry's help, Lucia remembers that the parasite has green blood, so she cuts open her hand. Once found out, the parasite transforms into another monster, which causes yet another side-by-side boss fight that caused me to search the entire ship for ammo again. The final boss is a souped-up version of the BOW parasite that can attack you from any distance. I find it very funny that the game gives you a knife as a last defense option for enemies, but now they won't even get close enough for you to attack them. I could easily see somebody having to restart the entire game at this point if you don't have enough ammunition. You're just completely locked out of the ending. But with enough ammo on hand, you can easily kill it in less than a minute. With the monster finally dead, the 3 begin to set off on the ship. Barry remarks on Lucia's hands not heal- Wait a second, you're not Barry? What the hell? Did they forget to add his beard or something here? Okay, her hand doesn't heal, so she's happy that she's back to normal again. Then Leon calls HQ to report that they're heading back. But just before the call ends, we zoom in on Leon's incredibly chapped lips to reveal green blood leaking out of a cut. I guess Leon's been dead the whole time and replaced with a doppelganger, which... oh god, the amount of plot holes this creates. What the hell did we just kill? Are there multiple parasites now? Why didn't Lucia realize that this was the faker like the first one? I cannot handle this game. And that ends Resident Evil Gaiden on the Game Boy Color. Holy shit, what a roller coaster of emotions. The game began by charming my little pants off and impressing me from the detailed sprite work and how closely they managed to replicate Resident Evil survival horror gameplay. But then, as time went on, I got more and more turned around as the problems kept piling up, ending on an incredible climax that is stupid beyond reason. I think it's fair to say that Resident Evil Gaiden is a bad game. You could put it up against any other mainline entry in the franchise and see easily how it fails to properly pull off survival horror. And the story does not give itself enough time to properly explain anything important before turning into complete nonsense. You could straight up call this game shit and you wouldn't be wrong. But on the other side of things, I am still impressed by how closely they got to a decent survival horror game on the Game Boy Color. And yeah, the story is garbage, but it's fun garbage. I had a blast laughing at it. So in the end, a score would rely on the question, how much are you willing to forgive thanks to the clear ambition and hardware limitation? Or would you just be the kind of person that says, it shouldn't have been on the Game Boy Color at all, so fuck it? Personally, I still find the game to be incredibly cute, but that cuteness is not enough to make up for all its faults. I'm still gonna give it a low score. I'm giving Resident Evil Gaiden a 3 out of 10. The last 2 games sure have been a mess, but don't you worry, on the horizon, we have a real beacon of hope. Next video, we'll see a massive improvement in the franchise as a whole, as I get to talk about the Resident Evil 1 remake on GameCube. Don't forget to like, leave a comment, and share this video with friends if you enjoyed it. See you then.